The music pulsed softly behind her as Lana stepped into the private lounge on the top floor of the Meridian Hotel. Everything felt wrong. The lights were too soft, the perfume in the air too expensive, and the heels on her feet didn't belong to her. She wore a black dress her sister insisted she borrow, tight at the waist and far more glamorous than Lana ever dared to wear on her own. She was supposed to be working coat check, just hang up jackets, hand out tickets, smile politely, and stay invisible. But her sister had twisted her ankle that morning and begged her to take her place as a VIP hostess for the night. "Just serve drinks and keep your head down," her sister had whispered, gripping her arm. "You don't even have to speak." But someone noticed her. He stood alone near the balcony windows, the city glowing faintly behind him. He was tall, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit with silver cufflinks that caught the light. He held a glass of something dark in one hand, but he didn't sip it. His eyes were fixed on her, calm and unreadable. Lana tried to look away. He kept coming. She stood frozen as he approached. His steps were quiet, smooth, like he had never once in his life needed to hurry. When he reached her, he didn't ask for a drink. He didn't even look surprised. "You're early," he said. She blinked. "I'm sorry?" He tilted his head slightly. "I don't usually request new ones, but your file said you're discreet. You came in through the back entrance. Smart." I think you have the wrong person." He reached into his jacket pocket and handed her a sleek black keycard with a gold emblem. "Penthouse," he said. 30 minutes. Then he walked away. Lana stood there, breath caught in her throat. She looked at the card in her hand. Then she looked after him, heart thudding against her ribs. "What just happened?" She turned, ready to chase him down and demand an explanation. But before she could take a step, security intercepted her. One of the men gestured politely toward a velvet-lined hallway. "VIPs that way, miss." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She turned to leave, cheeks burning, but at the exit, a woman in a blazer stopped her. "You're Lana, right?" the woman asked. "Mr. Damien Cross said you'll be reporting to Hartwell Tower at 9 tomorrow. He's expecting his new personal assistant." Lana stared at her, stunned. What kind of man makes a mistake like that, and then turns it into a job? The next morning, Lana stood in front of Hartwell Tower, a coffee in one hand and a knot in her stomach. The building stretched into the clouds, all glass and steel, shining like a monument to people who made the world move without ever touching the ground. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, that man's voice returned, low and calm, saying things she didn't understand. The card he gave her still sat in her purse, untouched since last night. She had wanted to throw it out, but part of her, the practical, broke part, told her to wait. Maybe it was a joke, maybe it was a test, maybe she was dreaming. But at 9 on the dot, when she gave her name at the front desk, the receptionist nodded like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. "Mr. Cross is expecting you," she said. "Top floor. Take the private elevator." So Lana rode the elevator alone. Glass walls, showing her the entire city as she rose higher than she'd ever been before. She stepped out into silence, deep carpets, and clean lines. Every corner of the office looked untouched, polished, controlled. Then she saw him. Damien Cross stood by the window, back turned, phone in one hand. His posture was perfect, motionless except for the way his fingers tapped the side of his thigh. She recognized the same suit from last night, though now he wore a tie, and not a single hair on his head was out of place. He ended the call, turned slowly, and met her eyes. "You came." "I wasn't sure I should," she replied, holding her coffee like a shield. "Most wouldn't," he said. "But that's what I needed to know." He gestured toward a small conference table. She didn't move. "You think I'm someone I'm not," she said, voice steady despite the heat in her chest. "I thought that," he answered, walking toward her. "And now I don't." "You hired me by mistake." "No," he said, I hired you because you didn't fall apart when you were mistaken." She didn't know what to say to that. He picked up a folder from the table and handed it to her. "Standard contract, personal assistant. You'll be responsible for my calendar, meetings, internal communication, and certain off-hour obligations. Salary is competitive. Hours are unpredictable. Privacy is expected." She opened the folder. The salary made her breath hitch. It was more than she had made in 5 years working 3 jobs, but still she looked up. "Why me?" He didn't blink. "Because every person in this building is either trying to impress me or avoid me. You don't care about either. I don't know you." "Exactly." That was how it began. By the end of the day, Lana had a badge, an office adjacent to his, and a schedule that made her question every life choice that led her here. The hours were brutal. The expectations were worse. Damien didn't raise his voice, didn't repeat himself, and never waited. If she didn't move fast enough, he moved past her. If she asked too many questions, he looked at her like she was a puzzle with missing pieces. But what surprised her most wasn't how cold he was. It was how quiet he was. He didn't make small talk. He didn't show off. He didn't flirt. He watched. He read everything and remembered it all. He corrected numbers in his head. He once looked at a draft of a press release, paused, and said, "Rewrite paragraph 3. It sounds like desperation trying to wear confidence." And she did. And he nodded once, and that was enough. The others at the office didn't speak to her directly. They watched, whispered, and smiled tight, professional smiles when she walked past. Someone once left a note on her desk unsigned that said, "Don't get too comfortable. He replaces assistants like coffee filters." She didn't show it to him. She didn't need to. She just worked. Every night she took the subway back to her tiny apartment and collapsed on the couch, legs sore, brain fried. Her younger sister Mia would offer reheated leftovers and ask, "So, are you quitting yet?" Lana always gave the same answer. "Not yet." Because for all the pressure, for all the mystery, there was something about Damien Cross that made her stay. Maybe it was the way he looked at the world like he had seen too much of it and didn't trust any of it. Maybe it was the way he held silence like a shield. Or maybe, deep down, she wanted to understand the kind of man who mistook a stranger for something else, and then gave her a place beside him anyway. Whatever it was, Lana knew one thing. She wasn't here to play his game, but she had already stepped onto the board. The first week passed in a blur of calendar invites, boardroom echoes, and unfamiliar terminology. Lana adapted quickly. She had to. Damien didn't repeat instructions, and she learned that silence, with him, was more than absence, it was expectation. By the second week, she could anticipate his moods before he spoke. A certain pause in his step meant he had spotted a flaw in a document. A flick of his wrist while holding a pen meant he wanted her to interrupt a call. Still, he didn't offer praise. The only sign of approval was the fact that he hadn't let her go. She told herself it didn't bother her. But it did. Then came the gala. She hadn't expected to be involved. Big events were normally handled by the external team, but 2 hours before it began, Damien walked into her office with a simple line. "You're coming with me." Lana blinked. "Excuse me?" "You'll manage on-site coordination. My previous assistant used to." She stood up slowly. "Mr. Cross, I've never—" "You'll be fine," he said, already turning away. She opened her mouth to protest, but stopped herself. He didn't deal in questions. He dealt in outcomes. That night she wore a plain black dress, nothing like the one from the Meridian event. Her hair was pulled back, neat but forgettable. She stood behind Damien most of the evening, clipboard in hand, nodding at staff, whispering reminders into his ear as the guest list unfolded. People noticed her. They always did when she stood next to him. The difference was tonight, they weren't whispering behind her back. They were whispering in front of her face. "Isn't she the one from that rooftop lounge? I heard she just appeared one night and now runs his entire schedule. How do you think she got the job? Lana kept her face still. She had learned to master neutrality, but something shifted inside her, a sharp, quiet crack that spread beneath her skin. By the end of the evening, Damien was locked in conversation with two potential investors. Lana stood a few feet behind, managing logistics, when she caught sight of someone approaching from the side. Tall, blonde, confident it was Evelyn Vale, Damien's ex-fiancée. Lana had seen her in magazines. PR queen, reputation cleaner for the rich, and the only woman Damien had ever been seen with publicly for more than 2 months. Evelyn walked straight up to her, holding a glass of champagne like it was a sword. "You must be the new assistant." Lana met her eyes calmly. "I am." "Interesting," Evelyn said, sipping. "You have that disposable look, like someone who won't last the month." Lana didn't flinch. "You'd know about being disposable?" Evelyn's smile froze for just a second. Then she leaned closer. "Be careful, sweetheart. He doesn't keep people. He keeps silence. You'll see." Before Lana could respond, Damien turned. His eyes flicked between them. Evelyn smiled sweetly and walked away without another word. The ride home was quiet. Damien's driver sat up front, separated by soundproof glass. Damien didn't speak. Neither did Lana. But just before they reached her apartment, he said, "You handled her well." Lana looked at him. "Is that what this is? A test?" He didn't answer. She stepped out without another word. The next day, everything changed. An anonymous tip landed in the inbox of a gossip website. A grainy photo from the Meridian Lounge weeks ago, showing Damien handing Lana the black keycard. The headline read, "CEO Damien Cross caught recruiting escorts as staff? A mysterious hire raises eyebrows." The article didn't name her directly, but it didn't have to. The timing, the description, the insinuation, it all pointed to one person. By noon, whispers in the office turned into stares. By 2, someone left a folder on her desk labeled HR Review. And by 5, Damien had summoned her. She walked into his office, holding her breath. He was standing by the window, as always, one hand in his pocket. "You saw the article," he said. "Everyone has." His jaw tightened. "It's not true." "No, but it doesn't matter, does it?" He turned. "It matters to me." Lana crossed her arms. "Funny. You're the one who gave me that card. You're the one who assumed who I was. You started this. I fixed it. You promoted it." That landed. He looked at her, not with anger, but something deeper, something almost like regret. "I thought you were someone else," he said quietly. "And when I realized you weren't, I didn't know how to undo it without making things worse. You could have apologized." He looked down, silent. "Why did you really hire me, Damien?" His eyes met hers again. "Because when I mistook you for someone else, you didn't flinch, you didn't cry, you didn't run, you stood your ground." "That's not a reason." "It is to me." She shook her head. "Well, it's not enough for me." He didn't stop her when she left, but something in his eyes told her she had finally done what no one else ever had. She had shaken Damien Cross. The days that followed were colder than usual, not in weather, but in tone. Damien didn't remove her from her position, didn't transfer her, didn't cut her hours. He simply became quiet in a different way. The silence used to be indifferent. Now it felt like distance wrapped in guilt. Lana still came in on time, still managed his calendar, still typed up memos with precision. But the casual interactions, the occasional flicker of connection between them, those were gone, until the storm hit. It came on a Thursday afternoon. A blackout rolled across half the city, knocking out traffic lights and shutting down entire buildings. Hartwell Tower had backup power, but only the core systems remained online. The elevator stopped, the top floors went dim, and everyone was instructed to vacate except Lana, who stayed behind to help close out a document Damien insisted had to be finished before midnight. "You can go," he told her without looking up. "There's nothing else I need." She didn't move. "Unless you suddenly figured out how to proofread legal language better than my lawyer," he added dryly. Lana stepped forward. "You spelled partnership wrong 3 times. He looked up at her. Their eyes locked. Something flickered between them, challenge, humor, maybe the faint trace of a truce. He handed her the document. "Fine. Show me." They sat across from each other on the large table in his private office, the only light coming from his laptop and the flickering emergency wall strip near the window. Outside, the city was dark. Inside, it felt like another world. At some point, he took off his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and leaned back in his chair. Lana caught herself watching the way his eyes moved when he read, how he tapped his finger once for every paragraph that didn't make sense. "You always do that," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Tap, like a code." He looked at his hand, then at her. "Maybe I like rhythm, noise in control." She nodded, not sure what to say. Then unexpectedly, he asked, "Why did you really stay that night at the Meridian?" Lana's eyes narrowed. "You mean after you handed me a room key like I was some kind of—" "Yes." She leaned back. "Because I was too stunned to walk away, because I didn't know whether to slap you or laugh, and because some part of me wanted to see what kind of man could make a mistake like that and still look so damn confident about it." He didn't smile, but his voice softened. "I wasn't always like that." "Cold? Detached? What changed?" He hesitated, then said, "I trusted someone, once. She sold the trust to someone else. Lesson learned." Lana didn't press. Moments passed. "I read the gossip article again," he said suddenly. "You're brave." "I noticed something. You never denied the story." Lana looked at him amused. "I didn't think I had to." "You don't owe me anything," he said, "but you deserve clarity. So do I." She studied him in the dim light. "Then ask the question you actually want to ask." He did. "Have you ever done that kind of work?" She didn't blink. "No. Not once." "No," she said, voice calm, "but you never really believed I had, did you? You just wanted a reason to test me." He exhaled slowly. "I think I wanted to believe you could survive my world, no matter what it assumed about you." She stood then, picking up her notes. "You don't get to throw people into the fire just to see if they burn." As she turned, he said, "You didn't." She paused. "You're not what I expected, Lana." She turned around slowly. "Neither are you, Damien." That night, when the power returned, she left the building first, but not before he held the elevator door open for her, something he had never done before. The next few weeks shifted. He began to include her in meetings, not just as a note-taker, but as someone to consult. When his communications director quit, he asked Lana to step in temporarily. "You seem to know how to handle a crisis," he said. She handled it well. One evening, after a particularly long day, he offered her a ride home. She declined. He insisted. Inside the car, they sat quietly, the air filled with the scent of leather and late-night exhaustion. He spoke first. "Why do you live in that part of town?" "It's what I can afford." "You could afford better now." "It's not about money," she said. "It's about loyalty. My sister's school is nearby, and I promised her we'd stay until she graduates." He looked at her as if seeing something new. "You don't let people down," he said. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Another night he found her asleep in the staff lounge, jacket draped over her, files spread across her lap. He didn't wake her. He just watched for a moment, then turned out the light before leaving. Then came the press conference, a major acquisition, media from all over. Lana stood behind the curtain, notes in hand, headset on, organizing every second. Damien stood just behind her, watching her run the show. "You're good at this," he said. She smiled without turning. "Don't sound so surprised." "I'm not," she turned then. "Really?" "I've never been more certain of anything," he said. The words hung between them like silk, soft, unexpected, impossible to ignore. Later that night, after the conference ended and the staff dispersed, Lana found a small box on her desk. Inside was a necklace, simple, elegant, nothing flashy, and a note with 5 words. "For the woman I misjudged." She didn't wear it the next day, but she kept it in her bag, just in case. The morning started like any other. Lana arrived at the office early. She reviewed Damien's schedule, prepared briefing notes for an investor meeting, and coordinated with his travel manager about a sudden change in flight times. Everything ran smoothly, too smoothly. It was always the calmest days that unraveled fastest. At noon, Damien was in a closed-door meeting with board members. Lana waited outside, reading over a legal memo when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mia, her younger sister. "Are you okay?" "What's happening?" Lana frowned, replied quickly. "What do you mean?" But Mia was already typing again. "Your name's all over the internet. Search your name right now." Lana opened her browser. What she saw made her stomach drop. There, on the homepage of one of the most viewed gossip blogs in the country, was a headline in bold red. "Inside source claims Damien Cross's assistant used her body to get her position." Underneath, a collage of images, some from the Meridian Lounge, some of her walking next to Damien at the gala, and one taken from an unknown angle showing Damien brushing something off her shoulder. The implication was obvious. The article was full of anonymous quotes. She came out of nowhere. No one gets that close to him unless there's something under the table. She's manipulating him. No source was named, no evidence was solid, but none of it mattered. Perception was a monster that didn't wait for facts. Within hours, the article had spread across social media. Lana's inbox flooded with cruel messages. Her name started trending for all the wrong reasons. She sat frozen at her desk, breath shallow. A few employees walked past her more slowly than usual. One whispered, not quietly enough, "Well, guess the rumors were true." That afternoon, Damien canceled his meetings. She knocked on his door. No answer. She knocked again. Nothing. By the end of the day, she was still in the office, not working, just sitting, staring blankly. At 6:45, Damien's door opened. He stepped out, looking as if nothing had happened. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his expression unreadable. "Lana, in my office." She followed. Inside, he shut the door behind them. She stood. He sat. "You saw it," he said. "Of course I saw it." "Is it true?" he asked. Her breath caught. "Are you really asking me that?" He leaned back, steepling his fingers. "I need to know if there's anything I don't know." "You mean anything you haven't already assumed?" Her voice cracked slightly. "You gave me that job because of a mistake, but I earned everything else. You know I did." Silence. "And if you're asking me this now," she continued, "then maybe I've been wrong this whole time. Maybe you never saw me beyond that first moment." He stared at her. Then slowly, he stood. "You're not wrong," he said softly. "I beg your pardon? I didn't see you clearly, not at first, maybe not even now, but I never doubted your work, and I never believed that story for a second." "Then why ask?" He exhaled. "Because I've built an empire on certainty. I've had to question everyone. It's the only way to stay ahead." "And what if questioning me made you lose me?" she asked. He didn't reply. She stepped back. "Then maybe you deserve to." She walked out. The next morning, she didn't come to work. By noon, she hadn't answered his messages. By nightfall, she was gone. She didn't tell anyone. She packed her bags, left the city, and took Mia with her. A friend in the countryside offered a spare room. No cameras, no pressure, just space to breathe. Meanwhile, the story didn't die down. It grew. Damien released a statement denying every word. He threatened legal action. The blog retracted the article, but the damage was done. Then came the twist. A week later, while combing through his internal systems, Damien's security head discovered the leak. The source wasn't external. It came from inside the company. From Evelyn Vale. She had used a private connection, an old email from her time as PR partner, to send the edited photos to the press. Her motive wasn't money. It was revenge. She had watched Lana take the spot beside Damien she once occupied, and she wanted her gone. When Damien saw the evidence, he said nothing. He simply acted. Within 24 hours, Evelyn's business ties were severed, her name quietly removed from several corporate projects. No lawsuit was filed, no public scandal. But in that world, silence from someone like Damien was destruction enough. Still, the one thing he couldn't fix was the one thing he wanted most to undo. Lana's absence. 10 days passed before he found her. He didn't send anyone. He drove himself. She opened the door to the small rental house, barefoot, wearing a simple sweater and jeans. Her hair was tied back. She looked tired, not weak, just distant, like she had built a wall and learned to live behind it. "How did you find me?" "Checked the name on the car lease. You left it in my system." She stepped aside wordlessly. He entered the house. Mia wasn't there. "You were right," he said. "About Evelyn. About everything. It was her. I have the proof." Lana didn't react. "I released a full internal report. You've been cleared." She looked at him then. "It doesn't clear the silence." He nodded slowly. "I know." They stood in quiet. Finally, he said, "I'm not good at this. I've spent most of my life controlling variables, managing outcomes. I don't know how to lose people or how to keep them for the right reasons." Lana crossed her arms. "I never asked you to keep me." "I know," he said again. "That's why I want you back." "You can't just say that like it's an offer." "It's not," he said. "It's a hope." She studied him. For the first time since they met, he looked unsure. She walked closer, close enough to see the tension in his jaw, the regret in his eyes. "Do you want an assistant?" she asked. "No." "A crisis manager?" "No." "Then what do you want from me, Damien?" He hesitated, then said the one thing she never expected to hear. "Time." Lana didn't answer right away. She looked at Damien, his posture still composed, voice still calm, but something beneath the surface had shifted. He wasn't asking her to return as an employee. He wasn't offering her promotion or a contract or any carefully negotiated deal. He was asking for something raw, something neither of them had ever spoken aloud. A second chance. She walked past him into the small kitchen and poured 2 glasses of water. He followed, quiet. "I needed space," she said softly, placing 1 glass in front of him. "I know. I needed to see who I was outside of your world. And," he asked, "I'm still me. I don't miss the meetings or the deadlines or the way people looked at me in your office. But I do miss one thing." He raised an eyebrow slightly. "What's that?" She looked up. "You, before the silence, before everything became about fixing damage." For the first time, he smiled, just a small curve of his mouth, faint, real. "I wasn't sure you'd say that," he said, "but I hoped." Lana took a sip of water and sat down. "If I come back, it won't be as your assistant." "I wouldn't ask that." "I don't want to stand behind you anymore," she continued. "I want to stand beside you, as an equal." Damien nodded once. "Then that's what we'll build." Not long after, they returned to the city. Quietly. No press release, no statement. Just two people who chose to walk back into the chaos on their own terms. Lana didn't go back to her old desk. Instead, Damien introduced her as the new director of special strategy. A vague title that gave her full autonomy and removed any doubt about her place in the company. People still whispered, but this time she didn't flinch, and Damien didn't stay silent. He was different now, still reserved, still sharp, but more open. He asked her opinion in meetings. He backed her decisions. He laughed, rarely but honestly, when she teased him about his color-coded inbox. And sometimes, when no one was around, he would simply sit in her office, sip coffee, and listen as she spoke about things that had nothing to do with business. Mia noticed it too. "You're lighter," she said one night, watching Lana cook. "Lighter? Like you stopped holding your breath." Maybe she had. The real shift came one late evening, after a long strategy session. The office was quiet, most lights off, the city outside humming through glass walls. Lana stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at the skyline. Damien walked in, loose tie, undone collar, holding two takeaway coffee cups. He handed one to her. She took it, but didn't drink. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, "Sometimes I think about the night we met, and I wonder how differently this would have gone if you hadn't mistaken me." Damien stepped closer. "You would have left that night. Probably. You would have never seen me again." "Also true." He took a sip. "Then, maybe, I'm grateful for my mistake." She turned to look at him. "You're not afraid I'll use that against you?" He smirked. "You already have, 3 times." She laughed, quiet, surprised. He stepped beside her, close but not touching. They watched the lights flicker in silence for a moment. Then he said, "I still owe you a real apology." "For what?" "For letting silence speak louder than I ever did, for not protecting you when I should have, and for not asking if you were okay before assuming you'd be fine." Lana tilted her head. "You really mean that?" "I do." She looked down at the coffee cup in her hands. "Then I'll accept it, on one condition." "What is it?" "You stop treating every feeling like a negotiation." He smiled again, tired, honest. "That may take time." "I'm not in a rush." Damien turned toward her fully now. "You were the only person who stood still when the rest of the world wanted something from me," he said. "You didn't try to impress me. You didn't flinch when I misunderstood you. You simply existed, and that terrified me." "Why?" "Because I've spent years building walls, and somehow you got in without asking permission." She looked up at him. "I wasn't trying to," she whispered. "I know." Silence hung between them, but this time it wasn't distance. It was peace. He reached out then, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand brushed against hers, then held it. Warm, steady, like neither of them had anywhere else to be. 6 months later, the company launched its most ambitious campaign yet, a multi-city collaboration with international partners, something that would have taken a year under any other leadership. Lana stood at the edge of the stage during the final presentation, headset on, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning every detail with precision. She wasn't invisible anymore. She didn't stand behind anyone. People didn't whisper now. They listened. When the event ended, she stepped down from the side stairs, planning to slip away before the attention turned toward her. But Damien was already waiting. He held out a glass of water, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. "You missed your spotlight," he said. "I wasn't looking for one," she replied. He tilted his head. "You deserved it anyway." She glanced around. "Where's your usual security detail?" "I left them," he said. "Tonight, I wanted to walk alone." She raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound like you." "I'm working on being someone new." Lana paused. "Do I know this new version?" Damien stepped closer, his voice low. I think you're the reason he exists." They stood there, surrounded by laughter and soft music, but it all faded until there was only them. "I used to believe control was everything," he said quietly, "but then you came into my life like a mistake I couldn't manage. And somehow, you became the one thing I never wanted to lose." She smiled, eyes soft. "I used to think power looked like glass towers and expensive suits, but now I know it looks like showing up for someone even when they don't ask you to." He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out something small, a necklace, the same one he had given her long ago, now with a delicate star charm added to the chain. She touched it gently. "Why the star?" "Because you never needed my world to shine. You brought your own light." Lana took a slow breath, then reached for his hand, and they walked away together, not toward a perfect ending, but toward something real. A place where trust was earned, where mistakes were forgiven, and where love, finally, didn't need to be hidden behind silence. Some stories begin with a mistake, but the best ones are the ones we choose to stay in long after the damage is done.
Rebecca, a talented graphic designer in her late 20s, stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the necklace her mother had gifted her. She was used to solving creative challenges at work, but tonight, as she faced the reality of an arranged marriage, her hands trembled slightly. How could she commit her life to someone she barely knew? Her father, Gregory, a pragmatic businessman, had made the decision to marry her off to Christopher, the reserved yet highly accomplished son of a prominent family. Gregory's design firm was struggling, and this union was presented as the perfect solution, a merger that would save the company. Rebecca had seen Christopher only in photographs and heard whispers of his reputation. A deaf-mute photographer, he was known for capturing the world's beauty through his lens, even without hearing a sound. Yet, to Rebecca, he was a stranger with whom she was expected to share her life. That evening, a formal dinner was set to introduce them. Rebecca's heart was heavy with doubts and apprehensions. She whispered to herself, "How can this work?" But what Rebecca didn't know was that one small gesture from Christopher during that dinner would set the foundation for a connection deeper than words. The dining room in Rebecca's family home was transformed into an elegant setting for the evening. The table was adorned with their finest china, silverware glimmering under the chandelier's soft light. Gregory, ever the commanding host, ensured every detail was perfect for the arrival of Christopher and his family. Rebecca descended the stairs, her navy blue dress flowing gracefully with each step. Her mother, Eleanor, whispered encouragement, but Rebecca's mind was clouded with uncertainty. She wasn't sure what to expect. When the Taylors arrived, Christopher entered the room with a quiet confidence. His dark brown eyes, deep and observant, immediately found Rebecca's. He was dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, but it was his calm yet intense gaze that left her momentarily breathless. Gregory introduced them. "Rebecca, this is Christopher, your future husband." Christopher stepped forward, but instead of offering his hand, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. With a gentle smile, he handed it to Rebecca. As her eyes scanned the words, a warmth spread through her chest, momentarily easing her doubts. The card read, "Meeting you is an honor, Rebecca. Your passion for design is even more beautiful than I imagined." Rebecca's cheeks flushed as she read the words. She glanced up to see Christopher watching her with a warm, sincere expression. It was a simple gesture, yet it felt profound. A silent introduction that carried more depth than she had expected. As the evening continued, Christopher communicated through a sign language interpreter, his hands moving gracefully, his responses thoughtful and precise. Rebecca found herself drawn to his quiet strength and the intelligence in his expressions. By the end of the dinner, the apprehension she had felt earlier began to fade, replaced by curiosity. For the first time, Rebecca wondered if there might be more to Christopher than she had allowed herself to see. In the days following their first meeting, Rebecca found herself reflecting on Christopher's presence. There was something about the sincerity in his gaze and the elegance of his gestures that lingered in her mind. Determined to bridge the gap between them, Rebecca made a decision that surprised both her parents and the Taylors. She enrolled in an intensive sign language course. "You don't need to go through all this trouble," Gregory remarked one morning at breakfast, barely looking up from his newspaper. "The Taylors always provide interpreters." Rebecca stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "I don't want to rely on intermediaries, Dad. If Christopher and I are to build a life together, I need to communicate with him directly. It would be like living through translations forever." Gregory was taken aback, but didn't argue further. Rebecca's efforts didn't go unnoticed. During their subsequent chaperone meetings, Christopher displayed remarkable patience, often pausing mid-conversation to guide her hands into the correct signs. Every mistake was met with a gentle smile that encouraged her to keep trying. Though her signs were initially hesitant and clumsy, he encouraged her with warm smiles and gentle corrections. One afternoon, as they walked through the Taylors' orchid garden, a lush haven of vibrant flowers and winding paths, Rebecca mustered the courage to sign her first full sentence. "The garden is very beautiful." Christopher's eyes lit up with joy. He responded with deliberate gestures, ensuring she could follow. "My mother dedicates a lot of time to this place. Each flower has a story." Stopping near a cluster of purple orchids, he began to tell a story through signs, with Mrs. Clara, the family's interpreter, quietly translating from a distance. "These orchids were planted the day I was born. My mother says they are special because, like me, they found their own way to express themselves in the world." Rebecca felt her eyes sting with unshed tears. She hesitated, then signed a phrase she had recently learned. "They are perfect just the way they are." Christopher's smile at that moment melted away her lingering insecurities. As they continued their walk, Rebecca realized that the silence she once feared now seemed to hold a comforting rhythm. Their conversations, though slow and unspoken, began to reveal a depth of understanding she hadn't anticipated. For the first time, Rebecca felt a flicker of hope, a belief that perhaps this marriage wouldn't just be an arrangement, but something far more meaningful. One sunny afternoon, Rebecca found herself exploring the Taylors' estate while waiting for Christopher. Wandering through the quiet halls, she stumbled upon a door slightly ajar. Inside, sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating a photography studio filled with cameras, tripods, and prints. Curiosity drew her in. The walls were adorned with black and white photographs, and a large table displayed dozens of pictures. As Rebecca leaned in to examine them, her breath caught. She was in the photos. In one, she was laughing with colleagues at a design fair. In another, she was helping an elderly woman across the street. Each picture captured her in candid, unguarded moments, her essence rather than a posed facade. "What is this?" she whispered aloud. At that moment, Christopher entered the studio. He paused, his expression shifting to a mix of apprehension and vulnerability as he noticed her holding one of the photos. Rebecca turned to him, her voice soft but firm. "You've been watching me? For years?" Christopher reached for his notebook, his hands trembling slightly. He wrote, "I wanted to capture genuine moments of you being yourself. I admired your kindness and creativity from afar." Rebecca read the words, her emotions swirling. "Why didn't you ever approach me?" she asked. He wrote again, "I didn't want to interfere with your life. I wanted you to choose your own path, free from any expectations or history between our families." Rebecca felt a wave of emotion crash over her. All this time, he'd observed her not out of obsession, but out of admiration and respect. "Christopher," she began, her voice unsteady, "you've been seeing me in ways I didn't even see myself." Christopher's lips parted slightly as if to speak, but he caught himself, his eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and vulnerability. Christopher hesitated, then took another photo from the table. It was of Rebecca in the Taylors' orchid garden, her face bathed in sunlight, her expression serene. Beneath the photo, he had written, "The moment I realized you were beginning to feel at home in my world." Rebecca felt tears spill over. For the first time, she truly saw Christopher, not as the stranger she had been pressured to marry, but as someone who had quietly and patiently cherished her. Without thinking, she signed, "Thank you for waiting for me." Christopher's smile in response was radiant, and Rebecca realized that her fears were giving way to something deeper, a connection that transcended words. The day of the wedding arrived, bringing with it a calm Rebecca hadn't expected. The garden at the Taylor's estate had been transformed into a breathtaking venue, adorned with white roses and vibrant purple orchids. The air buzzed with excitement as friends and family gathered to witness the union. Rebecca stood in her dressing room, adjusting her veil in the mirror. Her mother, Eleanor, whispered, "You look stunning, my dear." Rebecca smiled softly. "I feel ready, Mom. This isn't just an arrangement anymore. It's the start of something real." When it was time, Rebecca walked down the aisle on her father Gregory's arm. But as her eyes locked with Christopher's, waiting for her beneath the floral arch, the crowd seemed to fade away. His smile was warm, his dark eyes filled with a mixture of joy and quiet strength. The ceremony began, and when it was time for the vows, Rebecca surprised everyone. Handing her bouquet to Eleanor, she turned to Christopher and began signing. "Christopher, when we met, I thought silence would be a barrier. But you've shown me that it can be the most beautiful connection. I promise to love you with every gesture, every look, and every beat of my heart." Christopher's hands trembled as he responded with his own vows, his expressions brimming with emotion. A murmur of admiration swept through the audience, and even Rebecca's father, often so stoic, discreetly wiped away a tear. "Rebecca, you turned my silence into a language of love. I promise to listen to you, support you, and build a life where our silence becomes our strongest voice." The officiant, visibly moved, announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Christopher and Rebecca leaned in for their first kiss as husband and wife, sealing their vows with a tenderness that brought tears to many eyes. The applause was thunderous, and as they walked back down the aisle together, Rebecca felt a peace she had never known. This wasn't just a merger or a compromise. It was the beginning of a love story uniquely theirs. After the wedding, Rebecca and Christopher began their new life together in a charming house just outside the city. Rebecca had designed the renovation herself, ensuring it reflected their shared passions. Large open spaces let natural light flood in, and a cozy photography studio was tucked away on the second floor for Christopher. Their routines blended seamlessly. Rebecca spent her mornings sketching new designs while Christopher worked on his photography projects. In the evenings, they often sat together, Rebecca refining her sign language and Christopher teaching her the art of capturing moments through a camera lens. One evening after dinner, Rebecca felt a wave of nervous excitement as she approached Christopher. She had been holding onto a secret for days, waiting for the right moment. Sitting beside him on the couch, she took his hands in hers and signed slowly, her fingers trembling slightly. "Christopher, we're going to have a baby." Christopher's eyes widened in surprise, his expression shifting to pure joy. Without hesitation, he pulled Rebecca into an embrace, his silent tears of happiness soaking into her shoulder. When he finally pulled back, he sighed quickly, his hands moving with excitement. "Are you sure? When did you find out?" Rebecca nodded, smiling through her own tears. "A few days ago. I wanted to be certain before telling you." Christopher placed his hands gently on her belly, his expression softening. "Our baby. I can't wait to meet them." Rebecca smiled, remembering the quiet moments in the garden when their connection first began to bloom, and now it was growing into something even more profound. In the weeks that followed, their bond grew even stronger. Christopher often placed his hands on Rebecca's growing belly, feeling the tiny movements within. He started taking candid photos of their life together, Rebecca sketching in the sunlight, her belly gently rounded, or the two of them laughing in the kitchen. These quiet, joyful moments reminded them both of how far they had come and the new chapter they were about to begin. As Rebecca and Christopher prepared for their baby's arrival, their love grew in ways they hadn't anticipated. Christopher began documenting their journey through photography, capturing moments that spoke of their unique connection. One photo in particular stood out to Rebecca, a shot of her sitting on their porch, her hands resting on her growing belly, bathed in the golden light of a sunset. Beneath it, Christopher had written, "The start of a new chapter." When their daughter Lila was born, it was a moment of pure joy. Christopher held her tiny hand, his face lighting up with wonder as he felt her delicate fingers grip his. Rebecca, exhausted but smiling, whispered to him, "She's perfect, just like her father." In the months that followed, their home became a place of discovery and growth. Lila grew accustomed to her father's silent world and her mother's gentle voice. Rebecca sang lullabies at night, while Christopher signed stories to their daughter during the day. As Lila grew older, it became clear she was a bridge between their worlds. At just 3 years old, she switched effortlessly between signing and speaking. One afternoon, she looked up at Rebecca and Christopher, her hands moving confidently as she signed. "Our family is special. We have 2 ways to say I love you." Rebecca's heart swelled with pride. Christopher, overcome with emotion, pulled Lila into his arms. Their daughter had not only embraced their unique dynamic, but was thriving within it. As the years passed, Christopher's photography began to reflect his new perspective. His favorite subjects became his wife and daughter, silent moments filled with love, laughter, and understanding. Rebecca often reflected on how their story had begun with an arrangement but transformed into something extraordinary. It was a love that needed no words, a bond that grew stronger through shared silence and understanding. Under a canopy of stars one evening, Rebecca signed to Christopher, "Our love doesn't just break barriers. It creates something entirely new." Christopher smiled, his eyes full of gratitude, as he replied, "And it will echo forever." Rebecca and Christopher's journey is a testament to the power of love, understanding, and breaking barriers. If their inspiring story moved you, don't forget to like this video and share it. Subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt tales of resilience, connection, and love that transcends the ordinary. The glow of the setting sun bathed Ethan Carter's sleek office in hues of amber and gold, casting long shadows over the Manhattan skyline. The floor-to-ceiling windows reflected his tall frame as he straightened his tie for what felt like the 100th time. On his polished mahogany desk lay the divorce papers, their presence as heavy as the secret Ethan had been carrying for the past 18 months. He stared at the papers, his chest tightening. In just a few hours, his marriage to Mia Robinson, a decade of shared dreams, laughter, and struggles, would officially come to an end. It was what he thought he wanted, or rather, what he thought she deserved. Yet, the weight in his chest told a different story. A soft knock at the door broke his reverie. When he turned, there she was. Mia, dressed in a simple yet striking blue dress, she stood in the doorway, her expression calm but her dark eyes betraying the turmoil beneath. Ethan's breath caught. Even now, with their relationship in ruins, she was effortlessly captivating. "You're early," Ethan said, his voice softer than he intended. "You're late," Mia replied, stepping into the office with the quiet confidence that had first drawn him to her years ago. "But then again, you've always been late when it matters." Ethan glanced at his watch. 7:22 p.m. She was right, as always. Before he could offer an excuse, Mia crossed the room, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Her fingers brushed the edge of the divorce papers, but she didn't look down. Instead, she met his gaze, her voice steady, yet tinged with vulnerability. "Before we sign anything," she said, "I have one last request. I want us to spend one final night together." Ethan stared at Mia for a long moment, trying to decipher the true intent behind her unexpected request. "One last night?" he asked, his voice laced with skepticism. Mia nodded softly, stepping closer, her gaze unwavering yet tender. "Yes. No lawyers, no papers, no grievances. Just you and me, remembering what we once had. And maybe..." Facing the truth, Her words hit Ethan like a wave, making him feel as though the ground beneath him had shifted. "And if I say no?" he asked, trying to mask the turmoil rising in his chest. "Then tomorrow we'll just be two strangers signing divorce papers," Mia replied, her tone gentle yet resolute. "But we deserve more than that, Ethan. We were a team once, remember?" The words "we were" clenched around Ethan's heart like a vice. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Fine. But if we're doing this, you have to agree to one condition. Honesty. No secrets, no hiding. You have to know everything." Mia blinked, momentarily surprised by Ethan's sudden agreement. Then, a slow smile spread across her face, a bittersweet smile that carried years of longing. "Everything," she repeated, holding out her hand. Ethan took her hand, feeling the warmth of her palm, a familiar sensation he thought he'd lost forever. "All right," he said, his voice steadier now. "So, where do we start?" Mia's grip tightened slightly, her eyes glimmering with something between hope and nostalgia. "First, we leave this office," she said, glancing pointedly at the divorce papers sitting on his desk. "Then, we remember how to be us again, even if it's just for one night." Ethan followed her out of the office, leaving the unsigned papers behind. He knew that tonight would change everything. The atmosphere in the small restaurant, where Mia and Ethan had shared some of their earliest dates, was painfully familiar. The soft glow of candlelight danced across the table, evoking memories of laughter and endless conversations. But tonight, the air between them was heavy. Mia offered a faint smile as the server placed their favorite dessert in front of her, a rich chocolate cake she always adored. "Do you remember this place?" she asked, her voice gentle but layered with emotion. "Of course I do," Ethan replied, trying to keep his tone even, but inside he felt as though he was being crushed by the weight of the secret he was about to reveal. Mia set her fork down deliberately, her hands trembling slightly as she locked eyes with him. Her gaze carried a quiet determination, like she was peeling back the layers of his carefully guarded walls. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to understand. Why did you change? Why did you push me away?" Her words sliced through him like a knife. Ethan leaned back in his chair, taking a shaky breath. "You want the truth?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes," Mia said firmly, her eyes never leaving his. Ethan lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze. "I was diagnosed with cancer, Mia," he said, the confession spilling out like a dam breaking. The world seemed to go silent. Mia's face froze in shock. "Cancer?" she echoed, her voice breaking. "When?" 18 months ago, Ethan admitted. "It's brain cancer. Stage 3. I didn't want you to go through the pain of losing someone else. After everything you've already endured with your family, I couldn't put you through that again." For a moment, Mia was silent, processing his words. When she finally spoke, her tone was different, sharper, stronger. "You thought you were protecting me by hiding this? You thought I'd want to leave you when you needed me the most?" "I didn't want to burden you," Ethan said quietly. "I thought if you hated me, it would be easier for you to move on." Tears spilled down Mia's cheeks, but her eyes burned with anger and hurt. "You didn't give me a choice, Ethan," she said, her voice shaking but resolute. "Love isn't about shielding each other from pain. It's about facing it together, even when it's unbearable." She stood abruptly, the chair scraping softly against the floor. "I need some air," she said, and walked away from the table, leaving Ethan alone, feeling as though his heart was breaking into pieces. Ethan found Mia at a small park near the restaurant, a place they used to visit often in the early days of their relationship. She stood by the stone railing, the soft glow of the streetlights casting her silhouette against the night. Ethan hesitated for a moment before approaching, her coat draped over his arm. "You'll catch a cold," he said gently, slipping the coat over her shoulders. Mia didn't turn at first, her voice steady but tinged with bitterness. "It's ironic, isn't it? You worry about me catching a cold, but you hid an illness that could have taken you away from me forever." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to steady his breathing. "I know," he admitted. "I was wrong, Mia, but I didn't know what else to do. I just didn't want you to go through more pain." This time, Mia turned to face him, tears glistening on her cheeks. "Do you think I'm so fragile that I couldn't face this?" she asked, stepping closer. Her voice was firm, almost fierce. "You don't get it, Ethan. I lost my parents, I lost my brother. But the one thing I can't bear is you making all the decisions without giving me a choice." "I was scared," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "Not of dying, but of making you watch it happen, of hurting you." Mia looked into his eyes, a mixture of sorrow and determination reflected in her own. "Love isn't about protecting each other by hiding the truth, Ethan. It's about standing together in the storm and refusing to let go. If you thought I wasn't strong enough, then you were wrong." Ethan felt the walls he'd built around himself crumble completely. He took a deep breath, looking at Mia with newfound gratitude. "I don't know if you can ever forgive me," he said softly. "I don't need to forgive you," Mia replied. "I need us to fight this together. No more secrets, Ethan. You don't have to do this alone." 3 days later, Ethan and Mia walked into his doctor's office at the medical center. Mia sat beside Ethan, a notebook in her hands filled with questions she'd written after carefully researching his condition. Ethan glanced at her, a quiet sense of gratitude swelling in his chest. "Are you okay?" Mia whispered, her eyes soft but watchful. Ethan nodded, though his palms were still damp with sweat. "I'm better with you here," he admitted, feeling for the first time that he wasn't alone in this fight. Dr. Chen entered the room, carrying a folder and wearing a warm smile. "Ethan, Mia, it's great to see both of you today," she said. "Let's go over your recent progress." As the doctor began explaining the results, Mia quickly jotted down notes, asking questions Ethan had never even thought to consider. He sat silently, watching her in awe of her determination and strength. "Doctor," Mia said, her tone confident, "beyond treatment, are there ways to improve his quality of life during this phase?" Her question made Ethan smile. In the weeks before, he had felt lost and directionless, but now he felt a glimmer of hope. When they left the office, hand in hand, Ethan turned to Mia and said, "I never thought I deserved you." Mia looked at him, her smile gentle. "You don't have to deserve me. We just have to try for each other." In the days that followed, Mia stood by Ethan's side through every step of his treatment. She wasn't just a wife. She became his partner, his caretaker, and his unwavering source of strength. Each morning, Mia woke earlier than usual to prepare a light breakfast for Ethan. Nutritious meals carefully planned to align with his treatment regimen. When the nausea and fatigue from his chemotherapy sessions hit, she was always there, holding his hand and whispering words of encouragement, her voice the only thing that could calm his restless mind. "You don't have to pretend you're fine with me," Mia would say softly whenever Ethan forced a brave smile. "Lean on me, Ethan. If you feel weak, I'll carry the strength for both of us." Ethan's strength waned with each passing day. The once manageable fatigue now left him confined to the couch for hours at a time, his breath shallow, his hands trembling. Yet, in the quiet moments, surrounded by Mia's unwavering care, he often found himself drifting back to memories of their happier days, the laughter they shared by the lake, the warmth of her hand in his. One evening, as Mia placed a blanket over his lap, he reached out, his voice faint but steady. "Mia," he said, meeting her gaze, "there's one place I'd like to go. One last time." In the evenings, they would sit together on the couch in the living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light around them. Mia would read aloud to Ethan, sometimes novels, sometimes articles she'd found about mental resilience during treatment. One night, Ethan said to her, "I never thought I could feel peace during days like these, but you make me believe that we're still living, not just surviving." Mia smiled, her hand gently squeezing his. "That's because we still have hope. Even the smallest spark of hope can light up the darkest days, Ethan." Though the road ahead was filled with challenges, Mia never let Ethan feel alone. She handled the practicalities of appointments, treatments, and daily routines, but more importantly, she made sure he felt her presence, her love, and her belief in him every step of the way. Through every difficult moment, Mia's care reminded Ethan that they were fighting together and that she would never let go, no matter what tomorrow might bring. 3 months later, Ethan and Mia stood on the rooftop of their apartment, the the lights of Manhattan twinkling against the winter night. The air was cold and crisp, but neither of them seemed to notice. In Ethan's hand was a small velvet box, and the anticipation in his eyes was unmistakable. "I think it's time we start over," Ethan said, his voice warm but slightly unsteady. Mia looked at him, surprise flickering across her face before a soft smile curved her lips. "Start over?" she asked. Ethan opened the box, revealing 2 simple platinum bands. They were their original wedding rings, cleaned and resized. "I thought it was time to put these back on. Not as a continuation of our old marriage, but as a symbol of the new one we're building." Mia gazed at the rings, her eyes glistening with tears. "Are you sure? We're still figuring things out." "I'm more than sure," Ethan replied. 3 months ago, you asked me for one last night, but you gave me more than that. You gave me a reason to fight, a future to hope for, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of it." Mia smiled, holding out her left hand. "I agree, Ethan," she said. "Today, tomorrow, and always." As Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, they both felt as though they were writing a new chapter. A chapter filled with love, hope, and resilience. As time passed, Ethan grew weaker. Each step became a challenge, each breath more labored. Yet, he carried one final wish in his heart: to spend a day with Mia at the lake, where they had made so many beautiful memories. One crisp autumn morning, Ethan watched Mia as she made tea in the kitchen. His voice was soft but resolute. "Can you take me to the lake just one more time?" Mia looked up, worry flashing in her eyes, but she understood his wish. "Of course, Ethan," she said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. They arrived at the lake in the late afternoon. The water shimmered under the golden sunlight, and leaves in hues of red and orange floated gently on the surface. The scene was serene, yet tinged with an air of finality. Ethan sat on an old wooden bench, his hands trembling as he tried to steady his breathing. Mia sat beside him, her hand gripping his tightly, as though letting go would mean losing him forever. "Mia," Ethan began, his voice frail, yet brimming with gratitude. "Thank you for never giving up on me. Even when I tried to push you away, you stayed. You gave me more than I ever deserved." Mia smiled through the tears that silently fell down her cheeks. "I promised you, Ethan. Love isn't just about being together in the good days. It's about standing by each other through the worst." The lake stretched before them, its calm surface mirroring the golden hues of the setting sun. Ethan's breath grew slower, his shoulders slumping as he leaned back on the bench. Mia watched him quietly, her heart aching as she noticed the way his hand trembled in hers, the way his once strong posture had softened into frailty. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "I'm here. You don't have to say anything more." He leaned his head on her shoulder, a small smile flickering across his lips. "I love you, Mia," he murmured, his voice barely audible now. "Thank you. For everything." Mia felt his final breath leave him, his body growing still in her embrace. She didn't cry out, she just held him tightly, as though to freeze the moment in time. As Ethan's breath faded, Mia closed her eyes, letting the memories wash over her like waves on the lake's shore. She saw him laughing on their wedding day, felt the warmth of his hand as they danced under fairy lights, and heard his voice, steady and comforting as he read to her during long nights. Even in his absence, he would remain a part of her, etched into every moment they had shared. The sun dipped lower on the horizon, its light casting a soft glow over their intertwined silhouettes. The gentle breeze carried with it the whispers of the lake, as if nature itself was mourning Ethan's passing. The leaves rustled softly, their colors fading into twilight, while the water mirrored the golden hues of the departing sun. For a moment, Mia felt as though the world stood still, holding its breath, to honor the man she loved. The quiet was broken only by the gentle rustle of leaves and the whisper of the lake, as if nature itself was mourning Ethan's passing. Mia kissed the top of his head, her voice trembling with unspoken grief. "You'll always be my love," she whispered. Callista Carter once believed that love could conquer all. When she married Louis Prescott, a highly successful and admired businessman, she thought she was stepping into a fairy tale romance. But 2 years later, she realized just how wrong she had been. Louis was not the husband she had dreamed of. He had never touched her, never looked at her with the eyes of a man in love. Day by day, she found herself trapped in a cold, lifeless marriage where love existed only in name. From the outside, they seemed like the perfect couple, a powerful businessman with an empire at his feet and a sophisticated, accomplished woman thriving in the publishing industry. But behind the doors of their luxurious New York penthouse, Callista was nothing more than a wife on paper, a forgotten shadow in her own life. She had tried everything to reach Louis, to make him love her, but every effort was met with silence. His indifference was not temporary, it was a deliberate choice. And then, one night, when Louis carelessly left his phone on the kitchen counter, Callista stumbled upon a truth she was never prepared to face. A truth that would shatter the last fragile hope she had been holding on to. This marriage was not just cold, it was a lie. And now she had to face the reality that perhaps Louis had never loved her at all. Callista couldn't remember the last time Louis touched her. No embrace, no kiss, no whispered words of love. They shared a home, but not a life. Every night, she lay alone in their vast bed, listening to the ticking of the clock, a cruel reminder of the loneliness that consumed her. Meanwhile, Louis returned late, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his shirt, sometimes not coming home at all. She had once believed it was her fault. She had tried everything, changing herself, becoming the perfect wife, waiting for him, hoping he would see her. But Louis never cared. Then, one fateful night, he made a mistake. The man who was always so careful with his phone left it on the kitchen counter. Callista was not one to invade someone's privacy. But when the screen lit up, revealing a message that no wife should ever have to read, something inside her cracked. "Last night was incredible. I can still feel you on me. When can I see you again?" Her heart stopped cold. With trembling hands, she unlocked the phone, only to be met with an avalanche of similar messages from women she didn't know, words of love and passion that were never meant for her. Everything fell into place. The late nights, the lies about endless meetings, the distant, emotionless glances when she tried to reach for him. Louis hadn't just betrayed her. He had stolen 2 years of her life, making her believe in something that was never real. Fury and heartbreak waged war inside her as Louis walked into the kitchen, looking at her with mild curiosity, as if her world hadn't just crumbled to dust. "How could you do this to me?" Her voice trembled, not just with pain, but with a strength she had never known before. Louis merely raised a brow, then smirked. "Do what?" Callista threw the phone at him. "Don't play dumb, I saw everything." Louis glanced at the screen and then shrugged. No guilt, no remorse. "Did you really think I married you for love?" His laugh was mocking, cold. The world tilted beneath her feet. "Then why?" she whispered, fists clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms. Louis sighed as if this conversation bored him. "My father wanted it, a polished wife made for good press, and you were easy, compliant, no drama." The words cut deeper than any blade ever could. She was never his love, only his convenience. But this time, the pain did not turn to tears. It turned to clarity, to rage, to a decision. That night, Callista packed her bags and walked away from that penthouse. Louis didn't stop her. No apologies, no regrets. And as the door shut behind her, she knew she was never coming back. Callista walked away from her marriage with Louis, but she had no idea where to go or what to do next. The apartment she rented was much smaller than the luxurious penthouse she once shared with Louis, but at least it was hers. Everything inside it was chosen by her, from the soft pastel curtains to the bookshelves filled with novels she loved. And yet, despite her newfound freedom, she felt empty. Every night, as silence filled her new home, Callista wondered, had she made a mistake leaving? Was this loneliness any better than the cold indifference she had endured? Those questions haunted her until he appeared. Sebastian Hale. The first time Callista met Sebastian was at a publishing gala where he had commanded the entire room with his confidence and authority. As the CEO of Hale Media Group, Sebastian was admired and feared, a man of intellect, precision, and undeniable power. But what most people didn't know was that Sebastian had been watching her for years. He had noticed her 2 years ago, before she married Louis. He had wanted to approach her, to speak to her, but when he saw the unwavering hope in her eyes as she looked at Louis, he had forced himself to walk away. Sebastian was not a man who took what wasn't his. But now, everything had changed. When news of her divorce spread, Sebastian knew his time had come. They ran into each other for the first time in years at a quiet cafe in the heart of the city. Callista sat by the window, absent-mindedly stirring her coffee, lost in thoughts that led nowhere. She barely noticed the shadow that fell over her table. Until she looked up. Sebastian Hale stood before her. "I heard about the divorce." His voice was deep, steady, yet laced with something restrained. Callista blinked. They had never been close, but the way he looked at her now felt anything but distant. "News travels fast," she murmured, forcing a small, detached smile. But Sebastian wasn't here for empty words. He studied her for a long moment before speaking again, and his next words completely shattered her composure. "Work for me?" Callista froze. "What?" Sebastian leaned back, his gaze sharp yet unreadable. "You need a job. I need someone I can trust. It makes sense, doesn't it?" She hesitated. Yes, she needed work, but why him? Why now? "I don't need saving," she said carefully, watching him closely. Sebastian smirked, but it wasn't amusement. It was something far more dangerous. "Maybe not," he murmured, his voice dropping just enough to send a shiver through her. "But you need someone who actually sees you." And in that moment, something shifted inside her. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as broken as she thought. Working under Sebastian Hale was unlike anything Callista had ever experienced before. Sebastian wasn't just a powerful CEO, he was a force of nature, a man who commanded every room he stepped into. He exuded absolute control, but with her, that control seemed to crack a little more each day. At first, Callista tried to keep her distance. While Sebastian had given her a new path, she couldn't ignore the silent tension between them. Every time he passed by, she felt his eyes on her. Heavy, searing, filled with an unspoken hunger. At first, she thought she was imagining it, but soon, it became undeniable. It was in the way they stood too close, in the way he always found an excuse to keep her working late, in the way his jaw clenched every time another man dared to speak to her. Sebastian was a man of control, but with her, that control was unraveling. And then, on a late night, the game ended. Callista was still at the office, focused on finalizing a report, when she felt him behind her. She didn't turn, but she could feel the weight of his gaze on her skin. "If I were your husband, I would have never left you alone." The words made her heart stutter. Slowly, Callista turned to face him, pulse racing. Sebastian leaned against her desk, his gaze dark, intense, filled with a desire he could no longer suppress. "Sebastian," she started, but before she could finish, he pushed off the desk, taking slow, deliberate steps toward her, forcing her to look up at him. "Say my name again, Callista." His voice was low, husky, a dangerous whisper. She forgot how to breathe. She should have stepped back, should have kept her distance, but she couldn't. And then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was a declaration, a release, a vow that he wasn't holding back anymore. His hands framed her face, pulling her deeper, making sure she felt every ounce of the hunger he had been restraining. Callista should have pushed him away. She should have fought it. But instead, she kissed him back with everything she had. Because for the first time in her life, she felt truly wanted. And Sebastian Hale was not a man who would let her run away again. From that moment on, Sebastian didn't let Callista run anymore. The air between them shifted. No more stolen glances, no more hesitant touches. Everything was clear now. This was no longer a game but a declaration. Sebastian wanted her, and Callista couldn't deny that she wanted him too. Everything came to a head at the company's gala. Callista wore a sleek black dress, her beauty commanding attention from everyone in the room. But no one looked at her the way Sebastian did, his gaze sharp, possessive, as if she had always been his. Then, Louis arrived. He smirked as he approached, eyes gleaming with mockery. "You moved on quickly, Callista. Barely divorced and already with another man?" Callista tightened her grip on her wine glass, humiliation simmering in her veins. But before she could respond, Sebastian stepped between them. His presence was unshakable, commanding. "She's none of your concern anymore, Prescott." His voice was cold steel. Louis chuckled darkly. "You know, Sebastian, she was still a virgin when I left her." Callista froze. But Sebastian only smiled. The smile of a man who had already won. His strong arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him, and in front of Louis, he kissed her. Not a soft kiss, but a claim, a warning, a promise. When he finally pulled away, his gaze never wavered from Louis. "That just means she was always meant to be mine." Louis had nothing left to say. He turned and walked away, but the taste of defeat would never leave him. And as the door closed behind him, Sebastian turned to Callista, his eyes no longer cold, but burning with unspoken desire. "You're mine, Callista," he whispered. "You always have been." And this time, she didn't want to run anymore. Sebastian never let her go again. After that night, there was no distance left between them. He kissed her like she was the most precious thing he had ever held, touched her with tenderness yet unwavering possession. Callista had never been loved this way, with passion, devotion, and an intensity that consumed her whole. And then, one day, Sebastian took her breath away completely. He brought her to a secluded beachside villa, where the waves crashed gently against the shore, and the sunset painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson. They sat on the balcony, glasses of red wine in hand, the ocean breeze tangling through her hair. Callista gazed out at the water, lost in thought, until she felt his eyes on her. She turned, and her heart stopped. Sebastian was kneeling before her, a stunning ring held between his strong fingers. "Marry me, Callista, not because it's the next step, not because it's expected, but because you know, deep down, that you belong with me, that you were always meant to be mine." Her breath hitched. "Sebastian..." But he didn't let her hesitate. His hand tightened around hers, his gaze holding everything she needed to know. "I don't want just a part of you." His voice was deep, steady, yet almost urgent. "I want it all. I want to wake up to you every morning, to be in every dream you have. I want forever, Callista." Tears welled in her eyes. She had once believed in love, had once been broken by it, but this time she knew this wasn't just another beautiful illusion. Because Sebastian didn't just love her, he worshipped her. Callista smiled through her tears, squeezing his hand. Yes, and as Sebastian slid the ring onto her finger, as he pulled her into a kiss beneath the golden light of the setting sun, Callista knew this was the best decision she had ever made. Callista's wedding day was nothing like the last one. This time, she wasn't a bride filled with doubt, trying to be enough for a man who never truly saw her. This time, she knew she was loved. The white gown hugged her figure perfectly, intricate lace details woven into every inch like it had been made just for her. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a different woman, one who was cherished, worshipped, and stepping into a marriage not out of obligation, but out of destiny. The grand doors swung open, and at the end of the aisle, Sebastian Hale stood waiting for her. He was dressed in a sharp black suit, tall and commanding, but his eyes held only one thing: her. Callista's heart pounded against her ribs as she took slow, steady steps toward him. Everything else disappeared. It was just her and the man who looked at her like she was his entire world. When she placed her hand in his, she felt warmth, protection, and the deep, unwavering love he held for her. His voice was steady, yet thick with emotion as he vowed, "From the moment I saw you, I knew you were meant to be mine. And today, in front of the world, I vow to love you, cherish you, and protect you, Not just for this lifetime, but for every lifetime to come. Those words weren't just vows. They were a promise etched into his soul. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Sebastian didn't wait a second longer. He pulled her into a kiss, deep and possessive, a kiss that wasn't just love but a declaration to the world that she was his, forever. And when he whispered against her lips, his voice rough with emotion, "I've waited for this moment for so long, Callista, and I will never let you go." She smiled, squeezing his hand, knowing this was the beginning of forever. 3 years later, Callista never thought happiness could feel this complete. She woke up to the soft glow of morning sunlight filtering through sheer white curtains. Beside her, Sebastian was still asleep, one arm draped over her waist as if even in his dreams, he couldn't bear to let her go. She smiled, but before she could fully enjoy the quiet moment, a burst of laughter echoed from outside the door. "Mommy, Daddy." The bedroom door flew open, and their two little angels, Leo and Leanna, came running in, their brown curls tousled from sleep, bright eyes gleaming with excitement. Sebastian groaned, burying his face in the pillow. "No way! It's too early!" Callista chuckled, but before she could respond, Leo leapt onto the bed, while Leanna climbed onto Sebastian. "Wake up, Daddy! You promised to take us out today," Leanna reminded him, her tiny hands trying to tug the blanket away. Sebastian sighed, but the soft smile tugging at his lips betrayed him. He pulled both kids into his arms, pressing a kiss to their foreheads, before looking over at the woman he loved most in the world. "I guess my sleep is officially over," he smirked, his gaze filled with warmth. Callista laughed, resting her head against his shoulder as their children giggled between them. This happiness she knew would last forever. Clara sat quietly under the dim light of a flickering street lamp. The cold wind whipped through her thin coat as she hugged herself tightly, trying to keep warm. Her once vibrant eyes were now hollow, as if the very essence of her soul had been drained, leaving behind only the weight of a mother's unspeakable loss. Life had been unkind to her. Once, Clara was a beloved school teacher, known for her kind heart and patience. But tragedy struck when her only daughter, Sophia, fell gravely ill. Despite her best efforts and countless sleepless nights caring for Sophia, Clara couldn't save her. The loss shattered her world, leaving her not only grief-stricken but also financially ruined from the overwhelming medical bills. Homeless and heartbroken, Clara wandered from shelter to shelter, carrying nothing but Sophia's worn-out diary, a cherished reminder of the bright, curious girl who had once filled her life with laughter. She tried to hold on to hope, but the weight of her circumstances grew heavier each day. One fateful evening, as the rain poured mercilessly, Clara sat on a park bench, drenched and trembling. She gazed into the distance, wondering if life still held anything meaningful for her. Little did she know, that very night, a chance encounter would change her life forever. The storm raged on, thunder rumbling across the darkened sky. Clara huddled on the bench, her wet hair plastered to her face. She was too tired to care about the cold or the rain. The numbness inside her heart made the storm feel insignificant. A sleek black car suddenly pulled up near her, its headlights cut through the rain, casting long shadows across the park. The driver's door opened, and out stepped a tall man with an umbrella. His sharp features were softened by a look of genuine concern as he approached her. "Are you all right?" the man asked, his voice calm yet commanding. Clara looked up, her body shivering too hard to respond. She shook her head, unable to find the words to explain her situation. The man crouched to her level. "You shouldn't be out here in this weather. Please, let me help you." At first, Clara hesitated. The shadows of her past made it hard to trust anyone, especially someone so polished and seemingly untouched by hardship. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw not pity, but genuine concern. With a weak nod, she allowed him to help her to her feet. The man introduced himself as Harry, a reclusive businessman who rarely ventured out in public. He didn't explain why he was there that night, only that he couldn't leave her in the rain. Clara, too exhausted to question further, let him guide her into his car. As they drove through the city, Harry's reserved demeanor softened. He asked Clara about her situation, but she gave only brief answers, ashamed of how far she had fallen. Yet Harry didn't judge her. Instead, he assured her that she was safe and offered her a warm place to stay for the night. When they arrived at Harry's sprawling mansion on the edge of the city, Clara was overwhelmed. The grandeur of the place, its towering ceilings, marble floors, and elegant furnishings, stood in stark contrast to the harsh realities she had been facing. As she barely noticed, as a young girl, no older than 10, peeked curiously around the corner. "Emily," Harry said gently, "this is Clara. She'll be staying with us for a while." Emily nodded shyly before retreating to her room, leaving Clara to wonder about the child. She didn't realize yet that Emily would soon become the center of her life. The morning light streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow across the living room. Clara sat quietly on the plush sofa, sipping a cup of tea that Harry's staff had brought her. She felt out of place in the mansion's opulence, but the kindness she had received began to chip away at her initial unease. Her thoughts were interrupted by soft footsteps. She turned to see Emily, Harry's daughter, standing hesitantly in the doorway. The girl clutched a stuffed rabbit tightly to her chest, her wide eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of nervousness. "Hi," Clara said gently, offering a small smile. Emily took a tentative step forward. "Are you staying here now?" "For a little while," Clara replied. "Your dad was kind enough to help me last night." Emily studied her for a moment before sitting on the carpet nearby, still holding the stuffed rabbit. There was a quiet vulnerability about her that reminded Clara of Sophia. She felt an instant connection, though she didn't yet understand why. As the days passed, Clara began to notice subtle signs that something was wrong with Emily. The girl often looked pale and tired, and she would occasionally clutch her chest as if in discomfort. Clara's instincts as a mother kicked in. The symptoms mirrored those Sophia had shown during her illness, and it sent a sharp pang through her heart, as if the wounds of her past had been torn open once more. Memories of holding Sophia during her hardest nights flooded back, overwhelming her with both fear and determination. One afternoon, while Harry was in his study, Clara found Emily sitting in the garden, her breathing labored. She rushed to the child's side and knelt down. "Emily, are you okay?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. Emily nodded weakly, but winced as another wave of pain washed over her. Without thinking, Clara scooped the girl into her arms and carried her inside, calling out for help. Harry appeared almost instantly, his face pale with fear. "What's wrong?" "She needs a doctor," Clara said firmly. "Now." Harry wasted no time. Within minutes, a private physician arrived and began examining Emily. As the doctor worked, Clara stood by, her hands trembling. Memories of Sophia flooded her mind. How helpless she had felt, how desperately she had fought to save her daughter. When the examination was over, the doctor pulled Harry aside. Clara caught fragments of their conversation. Unclear diagnoses, monitor closely, and potential complications. Harry's expression darkened, and Clara's heart ached for both him and Emily. That evening, Harry confided in Clara. "Emily's been unwell for a while," he admitted, his voice heavy with guilt. "I've tried everything, specialists, treatments, but nothing has worked. I don't know what else to do." Clara placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "I've seen these symptoms before," she said softly. "My daughter Sophia had something similar. I can help, if you'll let me." Harry looked at her, his guarded exterior crumbling. In that moment, he realized that Clara wasn't just a guest in his home. She was someone who could bring a sense of hope and understanding to a situation he had felt powerless to control. Over the following weeks, Clara devoted herself to Emily's care. She stayed by the girl's side, helping her through the difficult days and teaching Harry how to recognize and respond to the symptoms. Slowly but surely, Emily began to trust Clara, and the bond between them grew stronger. For Clara, Emily became more than just a child in need. She became a reminder of the love she had shared with Sophia, and a chance to channel her grief into something meaningful. Weeks turned into months, and Clara became an integral part of the household. Emily's condition had stabilized under her care, but it was clear to everyone that the young girl wasn't out of danger. Despite Harry's relentless efforts to find a solution, the doctors continued to deliver the same frustrating answer: no diagnosis, no definitive treatment. One evening, Clara sat at the dining table with Harry after Emily had gone to bed. The usually stoic man seemed more vulnerable than ever, his shoulders slumped and his face etched with worry. "I feel like I'm failing her," Harry admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "All the money, all the resources, and I still can't save my own daughter." Clara reached out and touched his hand. "You're doing everything you can, Harry, but maybe there's something more we haven't considered." The next morning, Harry received a call from a renowned specialist he had consulted months ago. The doctor had finally reviewed Emily's case in depth and identified a rare genetic condition. There was hope, but it came with a catch. Emily's condition required an organ transplant, and finding a suitable donor would be nearly impossible given her rare blood type. The odds of finding a match were slim, and time was running out. Clara listened intently as the doctor explained the situation. Something stirred deep within her, a quiet realization that both frightened and emboldened her. Without saying a word, she walked into the kitchen and pulled out her medical records, which she had kept in her bag out of habit. When the tests came back, the truth was undeniable. Clara was a perfect match. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Harry looked at her, his expression a mixture of gratitude and fear. "You're willing to do this? To risk your life for Emily?" Clara took a deep breath. "I've already lost one child, Harry. I can't stand by and lose another. Not when I can help." The days that followed were filled with quiet tension. Clara grappled with the enormity of her decision. Memories of Sophia flooded her mind. Her laughter, her strength, her last moments. She thought of Emily, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her favorite stories, the way she clung to Clara when she felt scared. One night, as Clara sat in the garden, Harry joined her. He had barely spoken since the test results had come back, struggling with the weight of the situation. "I don't know if I can let you do this," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "I've already asked too much of you." Clara turned to him, her expression resolute. "You haven't asked for anything, Harry. This is my choice. Emily deserves a chance to live, to grow up, to have a future. And if I can give her that, then it's worth it." Harry's eyes glistened with unshed tears. For a man who had always been in control, this was a moment of profound vulnerability. "Thank you," he whispered. The decision was made, but the fear lingered. Clara knew the risks, knew that the procedure could cost her life, but she also knew that the love she had for Sophia, the love she now felt for Emily, was stronger than her fear. On the day of the operation, as Clara was being prepped in the hospital, Emily clung to her hand. "You're not going to leave me, are you?" the little girl asked, her voice trembling. Clara smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from Emily's face. "I'm going to do everything I can to stay with you, sweetheart. I promise." As they wheeled her into the operating room, Clara closed her eyes, her heart filled with both fear and hope. Whatever happened next, she knew she was doing the right thing. The operating room buzzed with activity. Clara lay still on the table, her mind calm despite the risks she faced. She had made peace with her decision. This was her chance to save Emily, to do for the little girl what she couldn't for Sophia. Hours passed as the surgical team worked with precision. In another room, Emily lay under sedation, waiting for the organ that could save her life. Harry paced anxiously in the waiting area, his usual composed demeanor shattered by the weight of uncertainty. Finally, the lead surgeon emerged, removing his mask. "The procedure was successful," he said with a tired but reassuring smile. "Both Clara and Emily are stable." Harry exhaled, his hands trembling with relief. The operation was over. but the road to recovery was just beginning. Clara woke up 2 days later in a sunlit hospital room. Her body ached, but she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. As her eyes adjusted to the light, she saw Harry sitting by her bedside. He looked exhausted, his suit wrinkled, but his face lit up when he saw her stir. "Clara," he said softly, leaning forward. "You're awake." "How's Emily?" Clara asked, her voice weak but steady. "She's going to be okay," Harry said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thanks to you." Tears welled up in Clara's eyes as relief washed over her. "I'm so glad," she whispered. For weeks, both Clara and Emily remained under close medical supervision. Clara's recovery was slower, her body adjusting to the strain of the procedure. But Harry was always there, ensuring she had everything she needed. Emily, meanwhile, regained her strength faster than anyone had expected. One afternoon, Emily visited Clara's room, her face beaming with life. She climbed onto the chair beside the bed and held Clara's hand. "You're my hero," Emily said, her voice full of gratitude. Clara smiled, squeezing the girl's hand gently. "You're pretty brave yourself, kiddo." In an unexpected twist, Clara's recovery accelerated after Harry consulted with a team of researchers he had been funding for years. They proposed a groundbreaking experimental treatment that could aid Clara's healing process. Despite Clara's initial hesitation, Harry convinced her to give it a try. The treatment worked. Clara's body began to heal faster than the doctors anticipated, and within a few months, she was back on her feet. The medical team called it a miracle, but Clara believed it was a testament to the combined power of science and determination. One crisp autumn day, Clara stood in the garden of Harry's mansion, watching Emily chase butterflies with the energy of a child who had just been given a second chance at life. Harry joined her, his hands tucked into his pockets. "She wouldn't be here without you," he said quietly. Clara turned to him, her eyes warm. "She wouldn't be here without you either, Harry. You never gave up on her." For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of everything they had endured settling into the stillness. In their hearts, they both knew this wasn't just a story of survival. It was a story of love, sacrifice, and the power of hope. Life at Harry's mansion slowly returned to a peaceful rhythm. Clara had fully recovered, and Emily's health flourished more with each passing day. The once quiet house was now filled with laughter and warmth, a testament to the healing power of love and resilience. As weeks turned into months, Clara and Harry grew closer. They found solace in each other's company, sharing their fears, hopes, and dreams. What began as gratitude and respect soon blossomed into something deeper, a connection built on trust and shared purpose. A year after the surgery, Harry surprised Clara with a heartfelt gesture. It was a crisp spring evening, and the garden was alight with soft fairy lights. Harry invited Clara and Emily for what seemed like a simple dinner, but as dessert was served, he rose from his chair, his hands trembling slightly. "Clara," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion swirling within him. "You walked into our lives at a time when hope seemed out of reach. You didn't just save Emily. You saved me. You've brought love and light back into this home, and I can't imagine a future without you in it." Clara's breath caught in her throat as Harry knelt, revealing a delicate ring in a small velvet box. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his eyes filled with both vulnerability and certainty. Tears streamed down Clara's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. Emily clapped her hands excitedly, running over to hug them both. "Does this mean we're a real family now?" she asked, her eyes wide with happiness. Clara smiled, pulling Emily into her arms. "We've always been a family," she said, her heart full. A year later, Clara and Harry welcomed a new addition to their family, a baby boy with bright, curious eyes they named Ethan. Emily adored her little brother, doting on him at every opportunity. For Clara, Ethan symbolized a new beginning, a ray of light breaking through the shadows of her past. For Harry, he was a reminder of the love and strength that had brought their family together. And for Emily, he was a gift, a little brother who filled their home with laughter and boundless joy. Together, Clara, Harry, Emily, and Ethan built a life rooted in love and shared purpose. To honor their journey, Harry and Clara founded the Hope and Healing Center, a facility dedicated to providing medical support and emotional care for families in crisis. Clara poured her heart into the center, ensuring that no family would ever feel as lost or hopeless as she once had. The story ended not with a single act of heroism, but with a legacy of compassion. As Clara stood with Harry and their children at the grand opening of the center, she realized how far they had come. What began as a chance encounter on a stormy night had transformed into a journey of healing, hope, and the creation of a family bound not just by blood, but by love. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey. Clara and Harry's story is a powerful reminder of the strength found in love, hope, and second chances. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who might need a little inspiration today. For more stories like this, tales of resilience, kindness, and extraordinary ways people can change each other's lives, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss another story that could brighten your day. Let's continue to celebrate the beauty of humanity and the strength of the human spirit, one story at a time. Thank you for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next video. The city at night was a sea of glittering lights, skyscrapers towering like silent giants reflecting the glow of a world that never slept. In an upscale bar nestled in the heart of downtown, the air was thick with the scent of aged whiskey and quiet conversations, where the powerful met, not just to unwind, but to negotiate, to indulge, and sometimes to find temporary distractions. Ethan Hayes, CEO of the most powerful financial empire in the city, sat alone at the bar, fingers idly swirling the golden liquid in his glass. He wasn't here for company, nor was he looking for romance. Love was a weakness, an unnecessary burden in his meticulously calculated life. His world revolved around power, wealth, and absolute control. But tonight, something felt different. A strange restlessness gnawed at him, an unfamiliar sensation that he couldn't quite shake. And then she walked in. Olivia Reed was nothing like the women that frequented this place. No extravagant dresses, no glittering diamonds, just a simple black dress that hugged her frame in just the right way, elegant yet understated. Her striking blue eyes scanned the room with hesitant curiosity, as if she didn't belong here. Because she didn't. She was a stranger in this world. Their eyes met, and in that instant, Ethan felt something shift. It wasn't just attraction. It was something deeper, something inexplicable. She wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't seeking attention, and that made her all the more fascinating. Olivia felt her pulse quicken under the weight of his gaze. This man was dangerous, but there was something about him, something impossible to resist. She tried to look away, but it was too late. Ethan stood, his movements slow, deliberate, as he made his way toward her. The air in the room seemed to shift around him, his sheer presence commanding attention. Olivia swallowed hard, her fingers curling around the stem of her glass as he stopped right beside her. "You don't seem like the type to be in a place like this." His voice was smooth, deep, but laced with curiosity. She lifted her gaze, meeting his with quiet defiance. "And you don't seem like the type to strike up conversations with strangers." A ghost of a smirk touched his lips. "Maybe tonight's an exception," he signaled the bartender. "What are you drinking?" Olivia hesitated. "Just a cocktail." He arched a brow. "You don't come to places like this often?" She shook her head slightly. "Not really." "Then why are you here?" His voice was softer now, more intriguing. A beat of silence, then a quiet exhale. "Sometimes people just need a change." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, the invisible pull between them tightening with every passing second. The air crackled with something dangerous, something neither of them could ignore. Then, Ethan leaned in, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "Come with me." Olivia's breath hitched. "What?" "Tonight." His piercing gaze locked onto hers. Just one night. Her heart pounded. She should say no, But the way he looked at her, the way his presence consumed her, she couldn't. Just one night. She nodded, and in that moment, everything changed. The luxury car glided smoothly through the near-empty streets, city lights reflecting off the tinted windows in shimmering streaks of gold and silver. Olivia sat silently beside Ethan, her breath still unsteady after agreeing to his bold proposition. She shouldn't be here. Yet, as she glanced at the man beside her, his perfectly tailored shirt hugging his powerful frame, his sleeves rolled up just enough to reveal strong forearms, his sharp gaze unreadable, she knew she had stepped into something dangerous. Ethan didn't speak much, but his presence alone commanded attention. Ethan pressed Olivia gently against the cool glass wall, the city skyline stretching endlessly behind her like a sea of golden lights. But right now, the world outside didn't exist. All she could focus on was him. His lips crashed onto hers, hot, demanding, possessive, as if he was trying to imprint himself onto her very soul. Olivia shivered under his touch, her breath hitching as his hands explored her with an undeniable claim. Everything was moving too fast, and yet not fast enough. She knew this was supposed to be just one night, a fleeting escape, but then why was her heart pounding so wildly? Ethan lifted her effortlessly, carrying her toward the massive bed draped in soft silk. The moment he laid her down, Olivia felt as if she were free-falling, terrified and exhilarated all at once. But even as her mind screamed for caution, her body betrayed her, drawn to the heat of his touch. When he leaned over her, his fingers tracing slow, deliberate paths along her skin, she realized something. There was no turning back. Not from him, not from this night. "You're beautiful," he murmured, voice thick with desire. She forgot how to breathe. Her defenses crumbled, melting away under his touch. Ethan wasn't rushing. He was taking his time, as if memorizing every inch of her, engraving her into his memory. And then, as his hands moved lower, Olivia tensed. Ethan stopped instantly. His sharp eyes flickered with something unreadable as he studied her, his body taut with restraint. "Olivia," he murmured, his voice dipping into something softer. "You've never—" She bit her lip, her blue eyes shimmering under the dim lights. "No," she admitted, barely above a whisper. Ethan stilled. A storm of emotions crashed through him, surprise, hunger, but most of all, a fierce possessiveness he had never felt before. "Damn it, Olivia," he growled, tilting her chin up so she had no choice but to meet his gaze. "You should have told me." She bit her lip. "I didn't think it mattered." Ethan let out a low, humorless chuckle. "It matters more than you realize." Then, slowly, he lowered his head, pressing a lingering kiss to her forehead, gentle, reverent, yet carrying an unspoken vow. "I won't let you regret this," he promised, his voice raw with emotion. And that night, Ethan Hayes didn't just claim Olivia Reed. He lost himself to her completely. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the massive glass windows, casting a soft golden glow across the penthouse. Ethan was already awake. He rarely slept for long, but last night, the night he knew he would never forget, had drained him in ways he had never experienced before. His gaze shifted to the woman sleeping soundly beside him, Olivia Reed. She lay curled up beneath the silk sheets, her steady breaths rising and falling in a rhythm that should have soothed him. Instead, it unsettled him. The bed felt too empty, the sheets too cold without her presence. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt like he had lost control, and he hated it. She had slipped through his fingers, and the mere thought of never seeing her again sent an unfamiliar pang of frustration coursing through him. But when he returned from the shower, the bed was empty. She was gone. She had left without a word, without a trace, except for the lingering scent of her on the pillows and a strange hollowness in his chest. That entire day, he was restless. Important documents lay in front of him, waiting for his attention. But all he could see was her. Her soft brown hair, those hesitant yet captivating blue eyes, the way she had trembled under his touch. Annoyed, he pressed a button on his desk. "I want information on Olivia Reed," he ordered. "Where she lives, where she works, her financial situation, everything." An hour later, a detailed report was placed on his desk. Ethan's eyes scanned the pages. She was struggling financially, working 2 jobs just to afford rent. A slow smirk curled on his lips. She might have run from his bed, but she wouldn't escape him. Ethan had made his decision. Olivia belonged to him. She just didn't know it yet. The following days, Olivia noticed something strange. Everything in her life suddenly became easier. When she got home one evening, the stack of overdue rent notices that had been stressing her out was gone. Panicked, she called her landlord, only to receive a casual response. "It's been taken care of. No need to worry." She didn't understand. Who would pay her rent? The next morning, as she opened her door to leave for work, a neatly packed breakfast box sat waiting on her doorstep. Gourmet meals from restaurants she could never afford. Then, the moment that truly shook her happened. As Olivia walked out of her apartment building, heading toward the bus stop, a sleek black car was already waiting. The tinted window rolled down, and a familiar deep voice called out, "Get in." She froze, her pulse hammering as Ethan sat in the back seat, his piercing gaze watching her with calm determination. Her grip tightened around her bag. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "Driving you to work," he said smoothly. Olivia shook her head, her breath uneven. "You can't just—" "I can," he interrupted, his voice steady, unyielding. "And I will, every day." A chill ran down her spine. She should be angry. She should feel suffocated by his control. But the scariest part of all was the way her heart raced for him. Olivia thought Ethan would eventually grow bored and leave her alone. She was wrong. Not only did he not give up, but his persistence was relentless. Every morning, the sleek black car remained parked outside her apartment, no matter how many times Olivia refused the ride. It didn't matter if she left earlier or later. Ethan always knew exactly when she stepped out. And if she ignored the car, he would simply step out himself, walking alongside her to work, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her lunches changed too. Gone were the hastily bought cheap sandwiches from the convenience store. Instead, gourmet meals from 5-star restaurants began arriving at her office, always at the perfect time. Then came the flowers. Every morning, a fresh bouquet sat on her desk, accompanied by a simple note. "Don't forget to eat. Work less. I like seeing you smile." She knew exactly who they were from, but she refused to acknowledge them. Ethan, however, was not a man easily ignored. One evening, as Olivia stepped out of her office, she nearly stumbled upon seeing him leaning against his car, hands in his pockets, watching her with quiet patience. She crossed her arms, exhaling sharply. "Don't you think this is a bit much?" Ethan arched a brow, smirking slightly. "I don't do giving up." Her heart skipped a beat. She knew she was losing the battle against this man. Olivia sat across from Ethan in an upscale restaurant, the candlelight flickering in his piercing blue eyes. He had been relentless in his pursuit, and in the end she had given in, partly because she couldn't run forever, and partly because, deep down, she wanted to see him too. But as he watched her with quiet determination, she knew she had to be honest. "We need to talk." She set her wine glass down, meeting his gaze. "That night, it shouldn't have happened." Ethan stilled, his sharp features tightening. "You think it was a mistake?" Olivia inhaled slowly, steadying herself. "Yes." His fingers tightened around his glass, but his voice remained dangerously calm. "I don't—" She swallowed hard. "Ethan, listen to me." He cut her off, his voice gentle yet unwavering. "I'm not the kind of man who disappears after one night. You're mine, Olivia, and I take responsibility for what's mine." She shivered. "Take responsibility?" Ethan reached across the table, his warm hand enveloping hers. His voice dropped, rich and full of conviction. "Don't push me away. Let me love you." Her heartbeat stuttered. She knew she should run. She had spent nights convincing herself that Ethan was too intense, too dangerous. But the way he looked at her, as if she was the only thing keeping him sane, shattered every defense she had left. Maybe, just maybe, she wanted to be his. That night, she stopped fighting, and this time Olivia became his by choice. Ethan didn't know when Olivia had become his obsession. She had seeped into every dark corner of his mind, turning into an addiction he could no longer control. Every morning he wanted to see her first. Every night he couldn't sleep unless she was in his arms. And the mere thought of her leaving sent a violent storm raging inside him. That night, after losing themselves in each other, Ethan could no longer hold back. He propped himself up on the bed, his gaze locked onto Olivia. Her tousled hair splayed across the pillow, her breath still uneven, her flawless skin marked by his touch. She was his, and he wanted to make it permanent. "Marry me." Olivia's eyes shot open, her heart nearly stopping. What? Ethan's gaze darkened, his grip on her waist tightening possessively. "I won't let you go, Olivia. Not now, not ever. Be mine. Forever." She sat up abruptly, clutching the sheets to her chest as if they could shield her from the intensity of his words. "Ethan, you can't be serious. We haven't been together that long." Ethan leaned in, his fingers tilting her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. "This isn't up for debate, Olivia. You belong to me." Her world spun. Logic told her to run, but her heart had belonged to Ethan for a long time. Her lips trembled as she whispered the words that sealed her fate. "Yes." And in that instant, Ethan's eyes darkened not just with happiness, but with absolute possession. From this moment on, she was his, forever. Their wedding happened faster than Olivia could have imagined. Ethan didn't believe in waiting. Once he decided something was his, he would claim it completely. And Olivia, standing before him in a breathtaking white gown, was the most precious thing he had ever possessed. The extravagant ceremony was held in the city's most luxurious hotel. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over the grand ballroom, where the most powerful guests sipped champagne and exchanged hushed conversations. But Olivia didn't care about them. She only saw Ethan. He stood at the altar, tall and commanding in his perfectly tailored black suit, his piercing blue eyes locked onto her with an unrelenting possessiveness as she walked toward him. When Olivia placed her hand in his, Ethan's grip tightened, silent proof that he would never let her go. "I, Ethan Hayes, vow to love you, protect you, and never let you leave my arms." His voice was deep, unwavering, filled with raw devotion. Olivia took a shaky breath, her vision blurred with unshed tears. "I, Olivia Reed, vow to stand by you, to love you." She paused, her voice trembling with emotion. "And to be yours, forever." Ethan didn't wait. He pulled her into a deep, claiming kiss. Applause erupted around them, but for Olivia and Ethan, the world had faded away. From this moment on, Olivia was officially his wife. Forever. Married life with Ethan was anything but an ordinary fairy tale. He was still possessive, still controlling, still making sure every aspect of their lives was under his watchful eye, from what Olivia ate, how much she rested, to ensuring she never overworked herself. But one thing was undeniable. She was happy. Ethan loved her fiercely, protectively, and he made sure the world knew she belonged to him. From unexpected hugs in the kitchen, possessive kisses in public, to the way he held her every night, as if letting go would mean losing her forever. But the happiest moment came one quiet morning when Olivia whispered, "Ethan, I have some news." He froze, his sharp blue eyes widening. "You mean?" Olivia nodded, her smile radiant. "We're having a baby." For a few seconds, Ethan said nothing. Then suddenly, he lifted her into his arms, holding her as if she were his entire world. From that moment, Ethan became the most overprotective husband imaginable, banning her from working, making sure she didn't walk too much, even hiring an entire team of doctors just to monitor her health weekly. 9 months later, their firstborn, Liam Hayes, arrived. a boy with Ethan's piercing blue eyes and Olivia's soft curls. And 3 years after that, their little princess, Emma Hayes, was born, turning Ethan from a ruthless CEO into a complete girl dad. Their home was filled with laughter, from chaotic breakfasts where Liam played with flour, to late nights when Emma climbed onto Ethan's back, demanding he be her royal steed. Ethan, once the feared CEO of a billion-dollar empire, now found himself on all fours, neighing while his daughter squealed with delight. As Olivia watched them, her heart swelled. The man who once thought love was a weakness had now built his entire world around it. One evening, as Olivia leaned against Ethan's chest on the couch, watching their children sleep, she smiled and whispered, "Did you ever think we'd have a life like this?" Ethan tightened his arms around her, pressing a kiss to her hair, his voice deep and certain. "No, but I do know one thing." He looked down at her, his gaze filled with unwavering devotion. "I will love you and our children forever." And Olivia knew it wasn't just a promise, it was the truth.